Pretty much since the very start of Gran Turismo Sport, people have been complaining about the balance of power. And sometimes it's fair, and it's not even really complaining, it's just stating the obvious, and it should be fixed. But sometimes, honestly, I think people do, in a way, over exaggerate it. Because in real racing, not every car is 100% completely equal. They're not even 100% completely equal in terms of lap times. That's not how they drive. It's really and truly impossible to make every car equal in the way it drives and still be realistic just because they ain't. Especially with Group 4 with different drivetrains and all that as well. Which this is the example I'm showing here is a Group 4. Because that's probably been the one most brought up. If they were able to make every car have the same lap time, it would be relative to track too, because every track is different. If they gave all the cars the same horsepower and weight, it would probably make a four-wheel drive dominate because it would be the most stable and best accelerating. If they gave the cars equal power to rate ratio, then like a 4C would dominate on a short track, and then like a GTR heavier powerful car would dominate on a big track. There's no way to make it 100% really and truly equal all the time. And I'd say for the most part people know this, but in a way it's kinda... I think it might actually be forgotten at some point. Now granted, I ain't saying that PD couldn't make the balance of power better. They could just make the Megane a bit slower on the straights. But if they make it too slow on the straights, it's going to be completely useless in all aspects because, like I mentioned before, drivetrain. Drivetrain makes a big difference. Because it's a front-wheel drive car, it understeers, so even though it's the fastest overall in most situations, it's actually still one of the worst handling cars because of the understeer. And because PD doesn't allow tuning, because that's a whole different video altogether, there's no tuning that understeer out. So they can't really make it all that much slower on the straights because then it would become completely useless. So they're kind of on a fine line between making a car overpowered and useless because different tracks call for different circumstances, so you can't really make it good on every track. You can't really nerf it on every track. It's just kind of a hit or miss depending on the track and in a way depending on the car. Granted, I guess eventually they could make every car quote unquote equal after a lot of trial and error, but then again it would go to the track and then they could make every car equal on one certain track, but then it would change for every other track. I highly, highly doubt they're ever going to get a system down where they change balance of power for every track to make every car equal on every track in terms of lap time. That's just not realistic. I guess it could technically be possible, but it would take more time than GT Sport realistically even have online for that to be figured out, because there's just every car acts different and then every track is different. So that's one of those like multiplication things. There's 30 cars in a class and then there's 30 tracks or whatever, so that's 900 combinations. And each track takes probably on average, let's just say 2 minutes to run. They obviously different tracks for different times, so let's just say 2 minutes is the average. And then you would probably need to run 10 laps per car to get a good reading. So that would be 20 minutes in each car 900 times. So that would be 18,000 minutes to be able to get that down. If my math is right, I think it is. That's extremely, extremely relative. That's probably not at all accurate in terms of time. But it's probably as good an estimate as anyone can have just doing it in their head without actually truly analyzing anything. Let's just say, for example's sake, 18,000 minutes to be able to do this. And that's not counting random stuff like PD servers going down and maintenance and all that when they can't test it, because you can't save any testing you do when the servers are off. whether you're PD or not, I assume. So, yeah, I mean, for what they're doing a decent enough job. They have to focus on a whole heck of a heap more things than just bounce power. They have to get this new DLC out. They have to make sure nobody's like hacking or cheating or cutting the track in ways that doesn't count or whatever. And then they're trying to fix the biggest issue that I think more people actually bring up is the penalty system. It's honestly, it does seem like that is gradually improving. I haven't actually been able to be on in the last few days because the PS4 is broke yet again. The interface like this still works, but the games won't play because the disk drive's out. But from what I've seen in a little bit of time I've been able to race since 1.06, it seems better than the game started. And that's probably a good way to say balanced power as well, honestly. It's better than the game started, at least. If you put it in perspective, like from this example, like the replay I'm showing, the best car on paper was the Lamborghini Huracan. It's not bad, but it's definitely not the best, then or now. Back then, the best car in reality, or in the game's reality, was the Nissan GTR for Group 4. Now, it's not good, not bad, but it's definitely not the best. Now, it's the Megane. What will it be in the future? Who knows, but it will be something, and there's really no denying that. Depending on the track, depending on the car, depending on the circumstances, there's always going to be a best car, and there's really no way to change that. Unless PD puts 18,000 minutes into this particular thing, and that seems kind of sort of unrealistic. So I hope y'all see that, yeah, they could probably make it better without putting in too much more time, but there's no way they can make balanced power perfect. In real life, balanced power isn't even perfect. They put like weight restrictions and ballast on the dominant cars and all that, but then again, that changes per track as well, so there's no way to truly do it. If real life can't get it completely right, and in a way that's probably a good thing too, because it creates more strides to get better. If they automatically made everyone equal, no one would really ever strive to get better because they would just be made equal anyway. Then it just wouldn't really work. So we have what we have, and what we have is probably about as good as we could realistically have. I guess they could make the Megane slightly less powerful, but then that would just make another car be the dominant one. Maybe eventually they can get it to where they're all within like half a second on every track or something like that, but even then that depends on the size of the track. If one car's half a second slower on Northern Isle, no one's ever going to use it. So, yeah. I think y'all get where I'm going with this. So, I'll pretty much just end it here. PD has their own fair share of problems that could be fixed relatively easy with relatively little effort. So for now, I don't really think they should focus too much on the balance of power, and just get it to where the racing itself is fun. Like no stupid penalties, no stupid cheating, no stupid ramming. At least then the racing is fun. If everyone happens to be in one car for a little while, so be it. At least then they can actually make the racing in that one car fun. I'd much rather have the racing fun before the racing varied in the sense of cars. Because one car can still be fun, but varied racing that's chaotic ain't exactly so fun. So, is the way they do it now worth yeehaw? It's an improvement over what they had, so yeah, sure. Yeehaw!